This is Wednesday, May 6th. There are 440 days until San Diego Comic-Con 2021. Welcome to SDConCast, the official podcast of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog.
VANUHTEE go.
Oh my god, I love LiveJournal, and my LiveJournal loves me. Current mood is hyperactive, current music, Refuse 73. I love the color scheme, it's pink and purple.
Good evening. I am your host, James Riley, and joining me on the podcast, as always, Carrie Dixon.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us.
And our special guest this year, our first special guest, Mark Evanier. All right, so can we hear you, Mark?
Oh, hello. I didn't know I was on. Thank you.
All right, you're on.
I never know when I'm on. I have not yet mastered broadcasting live to the internet. As anybody who's seen my podcast can testify, it's kind of like a game. People bet, when will he know he's on? Thank you for having me back as I become your most frequent guest star. Thank you.
You are a threepeat, which I guess that's copyright Pat Riley of the Lakers, like coach of the Lakers or something like that. So
let him sue us. Fine.
Yeah. All right. So this is actually the start of season 9 of the SDConCast. This year,
crazy.
It's a weird year. So we will be doing these monthly instead of weekly. We'll do a special edition here and there in July. We'll be taking comments and questions during the show. You can tweet us at SD_comic_con or use the hashtag SDConCast. We will also be keeping an eye on the YouTube live chat if you wish to comment there. First up, let's talk to Mark. Carrie, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Well, Mark, I mean, let's just start with how have you been doing in all this crazy world?
I'm doing fine. I've got toilet paper. I've got paper towels. I've got hand sanitizer. I've got food. I don't seem to have a woman. I've been searching. I checked out in the garage to see if there was one out there, and I just found more paper towels. But other than that, this is like day 57 or 56 of me changing my usual schedule of sitting at the computer all day writing into sitting at the computer all day writing. So it's not that different, and I keep forgetting what day it is. So
no, I completely get that. I work from home as well, and it's just like, well, this is just a little bit different, but not really. So completely understand that.
Yeah. So the strange thing is that this is about the time I would start packing for Comic-Con and planning the panels and such. And so I'm doing a few of them online in lieu of the real convention, but it's not the same thing.
No,
it's not at all.
Let's talk about that, about the panel. So you did a Cartoon Voices panel online last weekend.
Yeah.
What is your plan for the future panels? What are you thinking of doing?
Well, I'm going to play around with this. You guys have gotten very good at this. I'm still kind of learning, like when I'm on the air. And last week I did 4 one-on-one chats with people, just friends of mine. One of them, which is getting tons of hits, was with Sergio Aragonis, my co-conspirator, and it was kind of like a Comic-Con panel. And then last Saturday, I did a panel with 5 cartoon voice actors, in which we did a fairly good job, I think, of replicating the kind of cartoon voices panels I've been doing now at the con for 20 years. And I'm going to do some more of those. I'll be announcing dates and schedules, and I'm going to do some more of those little one-on-one chats with people, some in the comic book business and some not. And the convention has asked me to come up with some more panels that simulate what we'd be doing at San Diego, and I'm going to do a few more of those. I'll probably do a Jack Kirby panel online soon. I'll probably do our Business of Cartoon Voices panel, explaining the industry to novices soon, and maybe a few other panels on comic book history, and we'll see how much I can botch those up until I finally just give up the whole idea. But it satisfies a little void. It fills a little void that it's in my life that we don't have a Comic-Con this year.
So you've obviously hosted, a small amount of panels in person at conventions.
Yes.
I think you said on your blog, I think you said it was probably around 400.
Something like that. Yeah, I've been averaging like 13 a year for 50 years. Didn't do as many. Well, I didn't do 13 a year the first couple of years, but there's a lot of. I have no idea how many I've done.
Yeah.
But it's got to be someplace like 200-300, at least maybe 400. And I do panels at other at WonderCon and other conventions too.
But obviously, you're an old pro at that. How does hosting a panel online differ? Like, what are the challenges that you have?
Well, the main difference is no applause, no laughter. You don't, and when we're doing this cartoon voice panel, that's very significant because it's a funny panel, and it's hard to be funny without a live audience, as you know, Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert, and you know, those guys are proving every night. But we, you know, it's not that difficult once I mastered the software. And you have technical problems. When we were starting this thing last Saturday, everybody was online. We were in that period when we were all there and we hadn't just gone live yet. And all of a sudden, Bob Bergen, who's the voice of Porky Pig, suddenly says, "Mark, I can't hear you." Yeah. There was a technical problem. I went, "Oh, great. We're going live in, 75 seconds and I don't know how to fix this." We finally managed to fix it on. We start, if anybody watches it, they'll see us start and Bob can't hear us. We managed to fix it after a little while, but it's different in that you have this little comment feed running along the side of the screen and you're trying to read that and you're trying to, I was trying to kind of cut shots and jump from close-ups people to the master shot, and I'm trying to figure out where to go with things, and I'm trying to look at all my notes, and so it gets very distracting. If you watch the thing, you're going to see me not paying attention sometimes because I had just all these little technical things to do. I was directing the show at the same time I was hosting it, and what I did was, in this case, I picked 5 of the best people who I knew would be just wonderful on the show. Yeah. I was using a software called StreamYard, which only allows 6 people on the screen at a time. So, me and 5 good folks. And once you get the right, it's just like in directing cartoon shows. I've been saying for years, I voice direct, a lot of cartoon shows. The trick is to just get the right people and leave them alone. If you get the right people, a rhesus monkey could direct a cartoon show, and sometimes has. And so the same thing. I got 5 terrific panelists. Bob Bergen, Julie Nathanson, Fred Tatasciore, Phil Lamar, and Secunda Wood. And they were delightful, all of them. And I think the panels about comic book history will be easier because we're not trying to evoke laughter so much and applause.
And if anyone missed any of those panels, they can find them
on YouTube. They're all there. If they go to my site, which is newsfromme.com. There's a little link there to NFM TV, stands for News From Me TV, and that'll take them to my YouTube page, or they can just seek out my YouTube page, or they can type in cartoon voices and hit recent because it was last Saturday, and they'll probably find it. And there's the other talks I had up there. I did a panel with a fellow named Paul Harris, who's a great radio personality. I did one with my friend Shelley Goldstein, who's a great comedy writer, and I did one with a fellow named Bill Kirkenbauer, whose name many people know. He was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson many times, and he starred in 3 or 4 TV series. And we talked about our days hanging around the Comedy Store and about the stand-up comedy business. And some of the next ones I'm going to do will be with people who otherwise might be interviewed at Comic-Con. In fact, a couple of them would have been guests this year at Comic-Con, had there been Comic-Con. You realize that the last time I had a summer where I didn't go to Comic-Con in San Diego was the year I graduated high school, 1969.
That's kind of insane. So yes. What is that feeling of not having a Comic-Con to go to this year after 50 years?
It's a void. I mean, I'm glad they made the decision to cancel it, because I would have hated to have to go. I mean, I can imagine the cosplayers would have been safe because they're all masked, but I wouldn't have wanted to, walk around there for 4 days like that, and mumbling through masks and things like that. And I wouldn't have wanted to miss it. So it's nice that I was telling you before we started this that I was in my doctor's office. I got a little jump. He told me a couple of days before everybody started isolating to start isolating. I have a very wise doctor. And I said, well, I have really no events to go to, except there's this thing called WonderCon in a couple of weeks at the Anaheim Convention Center. And he said, don't go, get them to cancel it. They probably will cancel it. Just make sure they cancel it. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. And just then I got a text message from the convention saying they're canceling it. And my doctor was impressed like I did something. And it took a lot of stress off a lot of people to know that. The San Diego convention had an enormous bunch of people to consult and legal issues and convention. The people I've talked to down there have made it clear to me, which is, I guess we can all figure out, that turning off this convention, not having it, is about 10 times as much work as having it, because you've got to undo all this advanced planning, and you've got to renegotiate deals, and you've got to look at it, to deal with insurance companies and hotels and their bookings, and then figure out, you know, what gets refunded and who refunds it and who takes the financial hit and all these things. And meanwhile, I'm sure that all the businesses that were counting on a certain gross sales when Comic-Con was in town are now scrambling to find something to refigure their finances on. And it's sad for a lot of people because, you know, there someplace out there's a kid who was preparing his samples to show to editors there. Someplace out there's someone who was making a great costume they now have no place to wear. Someplace out there's people who have been dreaming for years about going to Comic-Con, and maybe they finally got a ticket, they got a badge, and now they got to wait another year. And there's a lot of people whose business flows from Comic-Con. There's artists who go there and they make a certain amount of sales, which they count on, and then they get commissions for drawings, which they're going to do the rest of the year over the next 6 or 7 months. They're not going to be able to do that. There's dealers who count on a certain thing. Maybe they've even planned their inventory already to take advantage of those, you know, sellers they're not going to have anymore. If you look at the overall problems that the coronavirus has done to this country, the loss of Comic-Con is not in the top 100,000 of tragedies, but it still affects an awful lot of people's lives and a lot of business. And then I just miss it, just on a personal level. It's a great experience for me to go there. I tell people, I don't think I could live like that for very long, but it's fun to do it for 5 days a year, to live at that pace of running to this and that and fighting through crowds and trying not to be late for your panels and trying to get into restaurants and seeing so many people and so much social interaction. And I'm kind of glad they're not trying to do it with social distancing. Las Vegas is about to open up with social distancing. They're going to put plexiglass shields between players at the blackjack table and have people wear masks, and they're going to check your temperature when you go in the door, and they're going to hand you a bag with hand sanitizer and mask and gloves. And if you go to the buffet, you can't touch the food. Someone with gloves and a mask on is going to, you point to it and they put it on your plate. It doesn't sound like a vacation paradise to me. And I don't think Comic-Con would have been very much fun if everybody was walking around trying to social distance in that hall.
So you just hit a whole bunch of points, and I want to address a couple of them. Robert Rose in our chat said that some people were urging CCI to reschedule instead of cancel. That would have been impossible, and I completely agree, and agree with what you were saying. Canceling is such a huge just legal hassle for them, and we kept being asked what's taking them so long to announce. If you read even the statements that they were making, you could tell they understood what the socially responsible thing to do was, and they were just trying to get to that point. It takes work to undo these contracts and all of that.
Yeah. And I read I happened to see, I don't even remember what it was. I came across the website for a comic book convention, or maybe it was a horror convention that's happening was scheduled for like August or September. And they essentially said on their website, hint, hint, we're going to cancel, but we can't till the governor declares something which causes our insurance to kick in.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of, things. I mean, the calling off Comic-Con has got to be 1,000 phone calls these people have to make.
Absolutely. I know. And the idea that some people wanted them to just reschedule to the fall, no one obviously knows what things are going to look like in the fall, but you can't imagine it's going to be completely better by the fall. And the idea of just canceling it now, just to go through the same thing again here in 3 months is just insane to me. So I'm super happy that they made the decision, instead of just postponing, to just say we're not doing it this year. We'll hopefully see you guys next year. I think that's great. And then I also wanted to talk about, you mentioned how hard this has hit artists and small vendors, and we are huge supporters of trying to support the small people right now. I don't know if you've seen, but we went through.
Yeah, I've seen. No, I see your blog constantly. I plug it on mine, and it's one of the great public services of the internet.
Well, thank you for that. But we went through the effort of, and if anybody listening or watching hasn't seen, for every single vendor that would have been at Comic-Con this year, we put all the information we could find, their social media, their websites, their web stores, and it is so important to support those people right now, because like you said, this is a huge financial hit for them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so many people plan their lives around Comic-Con. It's such a we're kind of like, I posted on Twitter right when it was announced that we were canceling. I said, I'm going to go down to San Diego in the middle of July and just wander the streets and do panels with anyone I can find on the streets. And some people took me seriously. They have turned the convention center into a home for homeless people, a shelter for homeless people. And they've installed cots and they've installed showers. I asked them if they could keep one cot and one shower there for me for next year. But that's got to be a very sad, strange place to be right now. Yeah. That whole part of town, it's that whole area there is so alive, even when there's no Comic-Con down there. And I actually have been down there a few times when Comic-Con was not present, and I had to be physically restrained from going across the street to the convention center and hosting 3 panels. But I would go in there and I would talk to my favorite restaurant. I took my friend Amber in there one night. We were down there for something else, and we went to my favorite restaurant, and they looked at me like, is the Comic-Con here? Wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here. They recognized us, and we talked about how the convention, how it impacts the business down there. It's huge. That whole area was built around the hotels, around the convention center. All those Hiltons, all those, that Marriott, they were built as part of a whole plan to make that area into exactly what it is. Yep. I remember I went down to San Diego before that ever existed. I was going to San Diego, and the downtown was a very grungy place, and it was full of I'm going to say tattoo parlors, but every place is full of tattoo parlors now. This was full of the ones for sailors, and it was full of sleazy bars, and there were women on the street who were, I don't think they were cosplaying, and the base for the convention for many years was a place that's no longer there called the Hotel San Diego, and they would hold the award ceremony there, and then we would come out and we would all walk in groups back to our respective hotels, because you didn't want to walk alone in that neighborhood at night. And we had to pass, it was right across from the Hotel San Diego, I have witnesses, the Institute of Hypnosexism, where they would advertise to teach you how to make anyone do whatever you wanted in bed. That was the area we were in, and that's all gone now. It's now a beautiful area full of Marriotts and Hiltons and Hyatts and great restaurants that you can't get into during Comic-Con, and that's now that whole financial model it's been turned on its ass because of this.
Yeah, and we've actually been talking internally. If anyone listening or watching is a local to San Diego and has the means, I mean, consider getting takeout from the gas lamp. Like drive down there and pick up something curbside.
If Lou and Mickey's is doing their clam chowder and their steaks, go to Lou and Mickey's and get yourself that. That's my favorite place to eat down there.
Very nice. So do you have any artist or vendor friends that just like you personally want to spotlight and be like, hey, go buy some of their stuff and help support them during this crazy time?
Not any. Well, if I mention any names, I'll make some enemies by not mentioning certain names. But
fair.
If you have favorite artists, they now have time. You may be able to get commissions from people you weren't able to get commissions from before, because they're going to try to replace the lost income. Most artists prefer to do commissions live because it's easier to talk directly to you and say, what do you want me to draw? And they tell you, and then you can show them a rough sketch. You come by in a couple hours, I'll show you what I'm working on. And you can show them the rough and they approve it, and then you finish it and they hand you cash. And it's easier than mail, but you can do it by mail. You can do it by email. And a lot of people I know a couple of artists who usually don't do commissions by mail, and they'll do them now because they want to replace that income. And you need to, I've been saying for years that the trick to Comic-Con is you have to make your own convention. You have to find the one you want in there, because in that hall there's a wonderful cosplay convention, a wonderful artwork convention, a wonderful anime convention. There's a wonderful convention about current comics. There's a wonderful convention about old comics. There's a very, very noisy convention about video games that you have to stay away from. I tell people, just see the whole hall except that one section there. You will not survive. And now you have to make your own convention at home. Yeah. And there will be panels online. I think other people are going to try to. The convention is going to put a lot of things online. I think some other people are going to try to put on some things. And, maybe it wouldn't be the stupidest idea in the world to look at the dates of Comic-Con and stay up late, eat bad food those days, see if you can find a big crowd to get lost in and enjoy panels that way, or do whatever it is. Whatever you do at Comic-Con, you may be able to find some equivalent of it at home and be able to enjoy it that way. I'm just going to wander the streets and interview people.
I mean, I can just go out onto my back porch and sleep outside for a day.
Yeah, it's I guarantee you, wherever you live, your city has a real overpriced hotel room someplace. you can find that, and
just wander into a hotel. Can I pay you $400 a night to stay here?
That's right.
And then not stay, and then go sleep outside.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to miss it. I already missed it. I missed doing WonderCon. I had planned. I had friends who were going to go to WonderCon. They'd never been to a convention before. Because WonderCon is the convention. You break them in to go before they go to the big one. And they were afraid to go. I said, well, then come to WonderCon. We'll get you in. We'll arrange something. And they couldn't do that. And then they couldn't do Comic-Con now. And I think we'll appreciate it. Yes. But anyway, I'm going to try to do most of my panels online in some fashion in the next. And we're going to keep presenting. All the awards are going to get presented. The Eisner Awards. We're doing the Bill Finger Award this year again. We're doing. I know they're. I think they're. I shouldn't. I'm not a spokesperson. I shouldn't say they're gonna. They may juggle a few around here, but they. Comic-Con is an institution that is in many ways more than just that 4.5 day gathering every year, because it's got an ongoing presence. There's a lot of good it does in the comic community, and they're going to try to do some of that anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I feel they've announced like a little bit, like we know they're going to do SDCC at home, like they did WonderCon at home, which, like you said, they'll put some panels online. They put up like an activity book. They're obviously still doing the souvenir, or not the souvenir book, but they'll do like a program book that you can download at home. So yeah, Comic-Con will absolutely do some things, and we'll do some things as well. We're planning another scavenger hunt, and we'll do another big podcast on Saturday. So it'll be fun.
That's great. You know, I mean, it's a certain amount of the convention is moving online anyway.
Yeah.
It already was moving online anyway. And I think we are not that far off from the day when a lot of the key panels and events at Comic-Con will be simultaneously live on the internet for the people who can't get physically to San Diego. That will probably happen eventually. There's a lot of legal problems involved in that, I know. But
do you think, real quick about that, do you think that the current situation is going to hasten that?
It might. I'll tell you, I have a little issue about that. I have a problem with, for many years, you know, one of the things that I really love about Comic-Con, and this is almost a past tense thing, it's getting, was the panels about veteran comic book creators, the guys whose work I grew up on in the 60s and 50s and 60s and such. And we've lost almost all of those people. One of the joys of Comic-Con was that the convention brought most of them out. If they were well enough, if they lived long enough and they were well enough to travel to Comic-Con, we brought them out there. They got applauded. Some of them were very emotionally moved. There was a comic book artist named Nick Carty. A lot of people watching this will know Nick. And Nick resisted invites to Comic-Con for many years. And finally, someone, I think it was Colleen Duran, talked him into it. And he came out and he had the best weekend of his life. And I interviewed him, and he sat at a table for 4 days and had a steady stream of people coming up to him and saying, "I've always loved your work." A lot of them said, "I'm an artist and I got into the business because of you. I learned to draw looking at your work." And Nick was the kind of guy who would cry if you told him the tide was going out. And he was just reduced to, he was so happy and so emotional about it. And it was lovely. We did that with a lot of people. I'm not sure there's anybody else to do it with these days, because now enough people have gone, and now we're into the generation that kind of grew up knowing about fandom and expected this kind of adulation. But we did I got to do these wonderful panels, the Golden Age panels, the Silver Age panels. And one of the things that bothered me tremendously about that for a while was that a lot of people wouldn't show up for them. They would say, "Oh, it'll be on the internet, right?" They'd be at the convention, and they would say, "Oh, I'm glad you're doing the panel with so-and-so." And I said, "Oh, we'll see you there, right?" He goes, "No, I'm going to get in line for the Lost panel. I want to go see, they're going to have, and this other panel, William Shatner is going to be there. So I want to miss that, but I'll catch your panel when it's online." And I'd say, "Well, it's not going to be online," because a lot of people assume in the era of TiVo and DVRs that you can't miss anything. You know, when I grew up, you could miss, when I grew up, if you wanted to see a TV show that started at 9 o'clock, you had to be in front of a TV set at 9 o'clock. Yep. And even then, there's people who love your podcast who are not sitting there right now. They'll catch the replay of it.
Absolutely.
They'll watch it. They'll watch it tomorrow on YouTube or something. And I kept saying, "Would you show up? The guy is going to be there. I'd like to not do the panel for 20 people.
Right.
And I'd like the convention to realize they should spend more money on these kinds of people." No convention, no matter how benevolent, programs for empty seats.
No.
And the Comic-Con was wonderful that way. If I told them about a Golden Age artist who was forgotten, they would usually invite them out, which is not cheap. And I just sometimes wish that we had more than 25 people in the audience for that person's spotlight panel. And now I guess we're giving up on the idea that you have to be there. now they'll look at how many hits the video gets or something.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that that's the way that comic conventions are going. However, I mean, it seems to me like Comic-Con, especially the Comic-Con International, is going to hold out for just doing the panels in the room without broadcasting them online for as long as possible. It seems like that's still their thing, is the experience in the convention, doing it that way. They may add things later, after the fact, but I think the core thing is the people at Comic-Con are the people that CCI wants to give that experience to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like CCI is held on the tightest.
At some point, it's going to change. It just has to change. But I actually think you get better panels sometimes when it's not going on the internet. People feel a little looser about what they say, because they can look at the room and say, okay, I don't mind saying this in front of these people. I don't necessarily want to say this in front of anybody in the world I've ever met, or something like that. But we had a lot of very wonderful panels that were important for comic book history over the years. We had, I think back, some very memorable ones that were one-time events. If you weren't there, you didn't experience them. And I just I don't know there's that many of those in the future, because, like I said, we've lost that generation. There's about I think it was 2 or 3 WonderCons ago, I was wandering through the dealer's room and I ran into my friends Len Wein and Marv Wolfman, and I said to them, "You want to hear something frightening, guys? There's 45,000, 50,000 people at this convention. The people who've been in the comic book business the longest are us." I got it. Marv got in 69. Len got in 68, I think. I got in 1970. That particular year, Stan Lee wasn't there. Neil Adams wasn't there. Russ Heath wasn't there. The next year, some of them were there. Except for Neil, they're gone. Those other guys are gone now. It's scary. I still feel like the kid who was going to his first San Diego Con in 1970 and was in awe of the older artists and writers and who went to all the conventions and was a kid and was so thrilled to meet some of these people and to interview some of these people and to hang out with some of these people. And now there's not too many people from my childhood who are still there to be met. Which is just what happens in this world. You get older. I'm 68 years old now. Even if I, emotionally am 22.
That's pretty old emotionally. I'm like 12.
Well, if you toured my house, you would you'd say 22. You're kidding. No, this is not a person who's old enough to vote does not live in this house.
I think that's definitely something that you can transfer over to the people going to Comic-Con now, because I know for me, having those experiences at Comic-Con is definitely feels like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Whether it be going and seeing the panel you did a couple of years ago, I cannot remember her name, but the lady who ghost wrote for Wonder Woman.
Joy Murchison Kelly. Yes, Joy Murchison Kelly.
Seeing that, and also being able to see, the latest Star Wars movie panel in 2015, where they brought the entire cast. Both of those, to me, fulfill the same need of seeing something that I can't see anywhere else. Yeah. So I understand that you can't have everyone there anymore, but I think as we go, everyone's going to be able to experience that in some way. Yeah. Which I think is what's the great thing about Comic-Con.
Yeah, I'll tell you another thing you lose by having it all happen on the internet. Speaking of women named Kelly, 23 years ago, someone there at Comic-Con, Maggie Thompson, introduced me to the daughter of Walt Kelly, the great cartoonist Walt Kelly, Carolyn Kelly. I met her at Comic-Con, and within 2 years, she was my girlfriend, and she was the woman in my life for 20 years. If you look around, there's an awful lot of people who met their mate at Comic-Con. They met someone who became a part of their lives permanently or for a long time. I've got friends I've met at Comic-Con, romantic and otherwise, people who became just good friends there. And I don't think you bond over the internet the same way. And you wouldn't bond if you were there this year and all wearing masks and gloves and spraying each other with Purell. There's a certain camaraderie there. You can be in a crowd anywhere. I mean, every city. I'm talking about not when there's virus, but when the thing was had not started, or when it is completely gone, whenever century that happens. But you can always be in a big crowds, but you'll never feel as much among friends as you do at Comic-Con, because all the people at Comic-Con are a little more imaginative, a little hipper, a little nicer in some way, and you could probably bond with almost any random stranger someplace there, even if you're not into what they're into. I've never been around people who are as friendly, saying hello and waving to you at Comic-Con, and I've sometimes walk around without my guest badge on, and they still wave to you and say hello and things like that, because we're all there to have a good time. And even if we, I don't, I am not a Star Trek person. Even the Star Trek people and I get along at Comic-Con. Even the people who love are there because of movies I haven't seen or series I haven't read. There's something very friendly about it, and you got all those great cosplayers walking around. I love 98% of the cosplayers. The 2% are the ones who don't understand when they're swinging their swords. I got taken out by a guy in a Conan suit last year at the Comic-Con. I was rushing to the Eisner Awards, and there was this guy who was waving it wasn't a plastic sword, it wasn't a metal sword, it was something in between. And he was leaping around, and he just leapt right into my path and smashed into me, and I fell down. I was wearing what passes for a suit in my case, and it was kind of like, sorry, it was a lack of caring, because this guy was going to put on his little show. He didn't care who wanted to walk any place. He didn't care about other people. He just had his moment in showing off his silly little costume, which wasn't that good a costume even. And I've occasionally dealt with, and at a couple of years ago at New York Con, I believe I genuinely saved a small child from being seriously injured by a cosplayer who was just putting on a show without any idea. In the middle of the aisle, somebody wanted to take their pictures, so he was going to perform for them. That bothers me a lot, because I want to love all the cosplayers. I want to have only positive feeling about them, because some of the costumes are so wonderful. Some of the presentations are so great. Sometimes I wish I had the time or energy to go around and photograph every damn one of them, because they're and I go online and I watch the videos of people who do that. And I go, wow, that was amazing. That's the creativity there that you see. I didn't take them at first. I know dealers who don't like the cosplayers because none of them have pockets and therefore spending money. But I've come to really appreciate them.
The good news is, at least I agree, there are a few bad apples, but they're pretty few and far between. And I also think that anyone who's been to Comic-Con would absolutely agree that, like, doing it online is not the same. Like, I don't think anyone who's been to San Diego thinks, like, oh, doing it online is the same. Like, no one thinks that. No. But let's talk a little bit about, obviously no one knows the future. No one knows what a year from now holds. But how do we think the convention will look different here in a year? Or will it look different? Will it just be like, oh, well, last year was just like a weird year?
I don't think it'll look that different unless there is still coronavirus remnants and we have to, be sanitizing and masking and whatever. Assuming that is completely out of our lives by, 440 days. I saw your ticker. You're now. I look at your site.
It's kind of depressing.
Did the ticker even go up to that high before? Did you have to adjust it?
No, we had to change it. Yeah, I don't think it's ever been that high.
Yeah. I don't see. The thing is that since they're not going to remodel the convention center in any meaningful way between now and then, and they probably won't even leave me my cot in my shower. It'll be the same capacity. Every year, people are saying to me, "Oh boy, the con is bigger this year. There's more people." No, there's no more people here. There's the maximum in this building. There's always the maximum in this building. It doesn't go up.
The capacity does not change.
It actually it went down when they went to those RFID badges. You know about that, don't you?
That it went down? I don't think
the number of people in the building went down because they didn't have counterfeit badges anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little suspect of just how many counterfeit badges they had before, but
they seem to think that there was
RFID is good.
They seem to think that there was an appreciable difference, and I felt that difference. I felt the convention being a little less cluttered, and I felt the wrath of some people who thought outside there would be people who were asking, you know, whenever I left the convention center, someone would rush up to me and say, "You're leaving? Can I have your badge?" And I'd say, "No, I'm coming back. I have to come back and host panels tomorrow." And they would start complaining that they couldn't even buy a counterfeit badge anymore. You know, so, but I don't know the convention will be different in the sense it's always different because there's new celebrities and new movies and new panels, but I don't know. I don't see what's going to change other than maybe we'll appreciate it a little more for having lost it that year. And maybe, you know, there'll be things like there'll be some makeups, things like that. There'll be some panels that will be, you know, what we got to cover last year and this year. You know, the Eisner Awards will probably cover, they'll probably do an in memoriam reel that covers 2 years, maybe. I don't know. I can't think of how it might change.
I mean, and that's fair. David Tapia in our chat said, one of my biggest questions would be if you can see if actors or featured guests will feel comfortable doing autographs and pictures next year. I can see some new safety rules in place, like no touching. And I don't know, I kind of agree with that, at least until like people feel comfortable again. Like obviously, again, no one knows when this goes away. No one knows like when we'll start to feel normal again. So I could see there might be like a transition period where we're like, okay, for autographs, like you don't get anywhere near them.
There are some celebrities who gave up autographs at collector shows and things over the past couple of years, and they offer you a selfie instead.
Yeah.
They'll pose for a selfie, but they will not touch you. Maybe we'll see more of that. But you know, we don't know how normal the world is ever going to be again.
No.
I wrote a piece on my blog today. I think there's too many people who are trying to predict the unpredictable. Right. We don't know. We not only don't know when all of this restrictions are going to be lifted. We don't know when individuals are going to decide that. The mere fact that our governor may at some point say, okay, everything can open again, doesn't mean that all those stores are going to open right away. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go to them. I will make my own individual decision about when to go out without a mask and when to touch other people.
Absolutely.
And presumably they will allow me to. And we don't know, and we don't know if there's another wave of the virus coming. We don't know if and when there is a vaccine coming. There's so much we don't know that I think it's much better to just recognize that and to fall back on the age-old answer to most questions, I don't know, which I think is sometimes preferable to the wrong answer.
I mean, we completely agree. Do we have any other reader questions, James?
I don't think any specifically for Mark.
Okay. Well, Mark, I want to ask you, what are you going to miss the most this year? Like, what is your number one thing you're going to miss the most this July?
I'm going to miss the pace. I love this idea. You know, I have my friend Carolyn, who I mentioned earlier, came to the convention with me for several years, and I would hand her a schedule of all the things I did. And it's an amazing schedule. It's breakfast meeting at 8 a.m., interview at 9 a.m., panel at 10 a.m., business meeting at 11, things like that. And I would mark on it for her, you don't care about this one, you can miss this one, you'll want to see this one, and like that. And I would just keep that schedule going. And I couldn't live like that normally, but 5 days a year I can handle
it's fun.
It.
Yeah.
And it's fun to do that. It's very, and you feel this exhilaration of, we do, on Saturday I do the quick draw panel and then the cartoon voice panel. And I think at the end of those two things, I think we just entertained a hell of a lot of people for collectively 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever it is. And I feel it's the same satisfaction you have when you complete any project and you say to yourself, hey, I didn't screw that up too badly. So I'll miss that. I'll miss seeing people that I only see at conventions. I'll miss the clam chowder at Lou and Mickey's. I may just, if it reopens, I may just go down there and get some. I'll miss that excitement. I like the crowds at the convention. I don't want to, again, wouldn't want to live that way a lot, but I kind of like love going up that big long escalator and seeing all the people, and everybody's having such a great time. It's one of the things that I like about Disneyland. Sometimes you just see so many people who are having the best time of their lives in a world where people can get very depressed and very morose and very frustrated. Everybody's having a great time, and you can turn around. You never get bored. Wherever you are, you turn around, there's somebody you want to see. There's a costume you want to look at. There's an exhibit you want to see. There's a dealer's table you want to inspect, or there's someone you want to talk to. One of the things I always tell people who run conventions is large type on the badge. I want to see people's names. I want to recognize people's names. I want to be able to read people's names from a few feet away and go, oh, I've always wanted to meet that person. So I'll miss that. And anyway, so, there's things that, that bother me occasionally. I get very tired. Sometimes I get very fatigued. Sometimes I just look and I've got too much. I look at the schedule and I go, why did I agree to do all these things? I'll tell you something I have learned last year. When people say, we want to interview you, I did last year's convention. Because it was the big fifth 5-0, I did a whole bunch of extra interviews. The convention asked me to talk to these reporters or these new interviewers and things like that. And I made the mistake of agreeing to things and not asking a question. Where are these? Where do I have to physically go? So it was kind of like the 1 o'clock interview was at the Bayfront Hilton, and the 2 o'clock interview was at the Hyatt, and the 3 o'clock interview was at the Bayfront Hilton again. And I covered too much ground. I got exhausted. But no, I'm going to miss the whole convention. I'm going to miss every minute of it. And I can't wait for, I guess the next convention I will go to is WonderCon, because there were two other there were two other conventions this year I was going to go to, which have both been canceled, and I'm actually not in a hurry to get on an airplane. I don't want to fly anywhere for a long time. I think that's another part of the economy that's going to recover very slowly. Air travel.
Absolutely. Well, we are super excited that it sounds like you're going to be doing a bunch of your panels this July, either with CCI or on your own. So that's awesome. And I'm sure you will be announcing all of that on your blog, right?
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And why don't you tell everyone one more time where they can find you online?
I am the easiest person to find online. You see how it says Evanier on this little thing here on this side? I'm turned on. Evanier, Evanier. If you type in Evanier, you'll find me someplace. But I'm at www.newsfromme.com. News from me. Me are my initials. And I've been blogging now for almost 20 years there. There's something like 20,000 messages posted. Don't go there if you like Donald Trump. And I talk about comics. I talk about politics. I talk about the convention. I talk about cats in my backyard. I talk about anything that pops in my brain. Yeah, anything. Whatever's on my mind at the moment. It is. I've been a professional writer now for almost 51 years, and I've spent a lot of time writing what other people wanted me to write. So on my blog, I get to write what I want to write. And that's a lot of fun. See, what happens is that I got to be fairly good at doing convention panels, which doesn't pay money. And then I got to be fairly good at blogging, which doesn't pay any money.
Nope.
And now my goal is to combine those two things into webcasting, which doesn't pay any money.
Nope.
but all three of those things have the advantage of you enjoy doing them, and you do them for fun, and you do them for your self-expression, and you do them because you just want to do them. And so
wouldn't know anything about it, all of that.
Yeah, because you guys are rolling in dough here on this thing, I'm sure. And I'm looking for the next new technological breakthrough where I can not make any money. So
so are we.
They'll come soon.
Can't wait.
Yeah, well, you guys do a great job here. It really is. When people ask me about Comic-Con, I send them to the convention page. Obviously, I send them here because you supplement what they put there, and you capture. I mean, that's a business website. You have the enthusiastic, excited. Isn't this great? Fan-oriented website, and there's an appreciation, and people will understand a little more about the convention from your website, because it isn't all about the logistics of how to get parking. You cover all that, but you also get excited about things that are going on there, and about celebrities who are going to be there, and about which person you love is going to become an unrecognizable Funko toy. It's very wonderful, So I can't figure out. I think there should be like an entire game show where they show you the Funko toy and you win money if you guess who it's supposed to be. I'm sitting there going, I don't know, male, female, I don't know. It's big wide head, glasses that narrows it down to 8,000 people, So
that's amazing. I love that. That would indeed be a great panel. But thank you so much for joining us, Mark. And we are definitely sad that there is no convention here in July, but hopefully between us and you and Comic-Con, everyone will get just a little slice of Comic-Con.
Good. Well, keep up the good work here. And I look forward to can I be on your season 10 opening show too?
Absolutely.
Good. All right. I'll come back. I'm going to be the Jim Neighbors of your podcast. Thank you.
We're not going to complain at all. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. All right. So long.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm going to leave meeting. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was fun. I love Mark. He's always just such a joy, and he's got so much history about the convention, and he's just a fun guy.
Yeah, that was awesome. But we do have some other questions that really weren't for him. Do we want to go through some of these?
Yeah, we can.
David Tapia asked, do we think that SDCC will record all panels going forward and maybe have them available online at some later point? We kind of touched on this a little bit. I know that Lenny mentioned that they tried it a few years ago with Comic-Con HQ, their partnership.
Did they, though? I don't feel like many panels ever showed up on that thing.
They didn't really put panels up, no.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was mainly like movies and a few like original shows. So
I'm sure, though, that so much of that has to do with the rights. Like, I mean, like WB or Fox or whoever is not necessarily going to be like, yeah, sure, like put up our panels for free on your platform. Like, they're not going to do that. So, yeah, no, I don't think they will put up all panels. And Comic-Con International in particular, I feel like has been particularly resistant to putting panels online, especially compared to like ReadPop, for example. Like, I feel like ReadPop has live streamed or streams a lot more of their stuff than CCI ever would or is interested in doing it, which I don't know. There's good and there's bad parts to that. Like, obviously less people get to experience it, but for the people that do get to experience it, it's so much more special. And I think CCI absolutely recognizes that.
Yes, that's and you can argue it from either side why it's better. Like Star Wars Celebration for the last few years has essentially been live streaming almost the entire convention.
Yeah,
and it's like that means I get to go to Celebration without going, and it's great because I can see those panels. But on the Comic-Con side, it's like how often. I mean, you get to go and be one of a certain number of people who get that experience, and that
Right.
makes it just so much more special.
And
And
they're very different models. But yeah, I mean, I think Read Pop is absolutely like, yeah, let's live stream. And I think CCI is very like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
This is obviously just a very weird, different year. Like the reason they are putting panels online right now is to give you alternative programming to nothing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not like we're going to do this moving forward. Like this is, I don't feel like that's the goal here.
Yeah. I saw Karen Session mention that if merch was already produced, it would be a good idea to sell it online. And absolutely, a lot of people will be doing that. We can expect to see what would be the Comic-Con exclusive showing up online. Because Funko's did it already for Emerald City and WonderCon. And we've seen some artists like, oh, here's the pin I ordered to get made for Comic-Con this year, and I'm putting it up on my store online. So,
yeah, Eggdrop Ramen, he changed his name. I think that's his new name. He just put up his Leia pen, and we know a bunch of other people have already announced like they'll be doing virtual conventions or virtual exclusives or however the hell we want to say this. Toddland will definitely be doing it. Factory Entertainment will definitely be doing it. I would very much assume Funko and Hasbro and those people will be doing it. And there will be so many more people who do it, especially as we get closer to the convention dates. Again though, because I saw someone comment with this in the chat, and I'm not gonna like call anybody out completely, but we've had way too many people say this. Look, I love CCI. I like Funko stuff. Please, 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 when we post about like supporting small artists, small vendors, and like how important it is to support them, stop replying asking, well, when are we going to see Funko stuff? Or I hope CCI puts up their merch. That's not our point. They will be fine. They can pay their bills, okay? Like, please go and support the small people who can't necessarily and relied on Comic-Con to make ends meet. Like, you might find someone awesome out there if you just go and explore a little bit beyond the big names. So that's my spiel.
yes. I mean, you never know when you're going to find something that becomes your new favorite thing.
Yes. And again, we love all of the big people. Like, there's nothing wrong with those people, but like, they are not necessarily the people who need your money right now. So just something to think about.
Okay. I'll think about it. I don't know if is there any other questions you saw that you wanted to cover, or should we just get into some of the little bits of news things that, well, here's one that just came up from Toon Boy. Will the Comic-Con early bird hotels start from scratch and offering rooms next year? The hotel of my choice was sold out when I tried this year. Absolutely. With the exception of the people who keep their badges from this year carrying over, I think everything resets for next year.
Yeah, I mean, they've already refunded everybody who did early bird hotels, and we'll talk about that here in like 5 minutes. But because they are refunding all of those, like James said, like everything except for badge types, basically, or your badge, like basically resets for next year. So no one goes into 2021 with a hotel room right now.
Right. So let's start and do a little bit of the news things. And first off, biggest news so far, Comic-Con is canceled.
What?
Yeah, right? So let's cover some of the things that have happened since they announced the cancellation. And the first one is what we just mentioned with badges. Badges are one of two choices. Keep it, rolls over to 2021, or ask for a refund and you get your money back. And that's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially it. If you would like to have your badge valid for 2021, like if you just want it to roll over to the next year, you don't need to do anything at all. We have had a couple of people ask that question, but you don't need to do anything. The only reason you would need to do anything is if you get a refund. And unlike in other years, when if you get a refund, you've been able to say like, well, but I want to keep like Sunday just so maybe I'm eligible for returning registration the next year. That's not the case at this point in time. If you get a refund, you have to refund your entire badge. So if you had 2 days, you have to get all 2 refunded. If you had 4.5 days, you have to get the whole thing refunded. It's all or nothing. So keep that in mind. But if you are a different badge type, they've basically, for everyone, they've essentially extended your status for another year. So that means that if you were press or a professional, you don't have to apply for an extra year because they've added another year onto your status, which is great. If you were a volunteer, you are basically still a volunteer for 2021, and they will contact you closer to make sure that you still want to attend and volunteer. So
there you go.
Yeah, the only thing is with volunteers, you will have to re-register, which honestly makes complete sense to me. Like, you're still eligible to be a volunteer, so you're basically like a guaranteed spot, but you will have to re-register, which makes sense because they can't just roll everybody over and assume everyone's going to attend and then wind up short like 1,000 volunteers. That is not a situation that would work out well for anyone. So
okay, and then as we mentioned, hotels refunds are being sent out on early bird because that's the only thing that had happened so far. There was no hotel lottery or anything like that. There was no parking lottery. So all of those will just happen next year. Nothing happened this year. So
yeah, and you should have already received your early bird refund. They just started to do those, I think, late last week. Real quick, I did see two things in the chat that I wanted to address. Child badges is another thing that they are basically just extending. So if your child was, I think it was 12 and under on July something 2019, not even 2020, they are still eligible for a free child badge. And then Sir Lister Smeg said, so SDCC 2021 badges are already sold out. I mean, yes, essentially they are. We've had a lot of questions asking if they'll do a resale, which they have not done since, I think, 2014. I think that was the last year they did one. No one knows, because it'll depend entirely upon how many refunds they get. If they get a ton of refunds, like, I can absolutely see them doing a small resale. If they don't, they'll probably just use whatever badges they had back and either do more giveaways or sell them through the museum or something, or just be like, well, we're just gonna have a little less capacity.
Which, depending on, again, what the situation's like next year, maybe
a good idea.
Or just a little bit more space.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody knows what's going to happen there. And I mean, even CCI, I'm sure does not, because it will depend entirely, again, upon how many refunds they get. So everybody's just going to have to see what happens.
Yep. So moving on to what we are basically going to be for the next 2 months leading up to Comic-Con. Yep. We, of course, will still be covering all of the releases, the exclusives, where people are going to be doing online panels. All of that information, we will obviously be posting about it, but what we really are going to be concentrating on are the things that we've hit on a few times already, and that is artists, vendors, exhibitors who would have been showing and promoting things at Comic-Con who will be selling things, and it will be the need to help them because this is their main thing for the year. So we will obviously be releasing the Hasbro exclusives if they release them, but we will be promoting all of those smaller vendors and artists who 60, 70, 80% of their income from the year sometimes is through Comic-Con and surrounding. Yep. So that's why we have created those lists that you've talked about. And why don't you go ahead and expand on that just a bit?
Sure. So if you go to our website anytime between now and the end of July, the very first post that you will see, because I've stuck it as the very first post, is the SDCC online post. And basically that's what we talked about with Mark. That is where literally every single vendor who would have been at Comic-Con this year, we went through and we found their social media, their website, their web store. It's all just alphabetized. And I know it's like a massive list and it's just kind of like, this is just like a giant wall of text, but honestly, like, either go on there and find your favorite artists and vendors and just go support them that way, or just click a couple links, like click shop on a couple links, and just like, you might find something really awesome. So that's a great way to find some new people. And that's a great resource. We did it for, like I said, everybody who would have been there, all the exhibitors, small press, and Artist Alley. You can go and shop that at any point in time. Like James said, we will still absolutely be covering exclusives. I've been really horrible about doing Under the Tents in the last couple of weeks, but especially as we get closer to the convention, we'll start doing Under the Tents more for the smaller people. Right now, we're mostly just retweeting it on Twitter because I've been super lazy. So the best way to find some of that stuff is actually to follow us on Twitter. But of course, we will also be covering all the bigger people, like he said. I did want to mention, I know Hallmark also said that they will probably be doing a virtual convention. I know we've had a lot of questions about that because they were like the only people who'd announced their exclusives before all of this went down. So I think Hallmark is going to do a virtual con, but we don't have details yet. But all of that stuff we'll still be putting on the website as normal. CCI will absolutely still be doing merch. And right now you can go and buy WonderCon merch. They put up I think a new t-shirt the other day, and then they also added some older merch that didn't sell out. Like they've got some tiki mugs and the 40th Comic-Con anniversary book that they've clearly been trying to sell for 10 years.
and they said they will keep adding random things, and it's basically as they go through and find something, they'll add it, and then it'll be gone. If it sells out, it's gone forever, essentially.
Yeah. Like I actually bought the WonderCon 2020 dice, which are now sold out. So, yep.
When do we expect this? Sir Lister, I was going to ask, when do you think they'll start putting up their exclusives? I think
go ahead.
Smaller artists, some of the smaller artists are doing it right now.
Yeah, like I said, I know for a fact Egg Drop Ramen released the Leia pen, and a couple of other people have been posting some stuff. I think we'll definitely see a whole lot more in July, but some people might do it early. Just keep an eye out. But I would say the majority of people will be posting it in July.
Right. Because it just flows for what their normal year is, and it just makes sense to do it that way. Trope Force asked, how will Prize Mule, not to exclude Gary, deliver SDCC happiness to virtual attendees?
I don't know. And honestly, like, if you guys have ideas, like, feel free to tweet us. Like, we are open to just about anything. I will say we're definitely not going to go super crazy with Prize Mule this year. But we will definitely be doing another scavenger hunt, and we'll have prizes with that. And we might do like probably some button giveaways. I actually did just reprint a couple of our old buttons, like that toilet paper one. I mean, I didn't reprint a ton, but we'll give away those. But yeah, like, I mean, if you guys have some fun ideas, like we've tossed around internally the idea of doing like a game show and inviting a couple of you guys on to play. So we might do something like that. But seriously, if you guys have ideas, like tweet us, email us. We're open to suggestions, and we like crazy ideas. Like 99% of our crazy ideas, like, we make happen.
Hopefully not crazy ideas that require an intense amount of work.
Yes.
Because those crazy ideas are the ones that we shift to the bottom of the pile when we come up with them. Like I do tend to come up with the ones that require the most work, and a lot of my ideas don't happen.
Also true. Also true.
Yes.
But yeah. Another fun way that you can support artists right now is with commissions. Just like Mark said, and even Jen Bartel said when she was on our WonderCon podcast, so many artists right now, like, who would not normally be offering commissions, like, probably are. So it never hurts to reach out and ask. And this is by no means a complete list, especially right now. But we do still have our SDCC commissions post up on our site, where we list lots of folks who we know are definitely doing commissions. So go get some fun art. Like, that's a nice little slice of Comic-Con.
And one thing, some of the art that we love the most is art that references Comic-Con. So
Yeah.
come up with some ideas for like, hey, I can't be at Comic-Con, so can you draw my favorite character like in front of Hall H or something like that, and get people to, people with commissions are open to ideas and see what you can get, because then it'll give you a little bit of Comic-Con and you can support an artist.
Absolutely. Sir Lester Smeg asks, can I have toilet paper instead of the toilet paper pen? No, you cannot.
If you follow Parks and Cons,
we're not giving that away.
No, if you follow Parks and Cons, he posted the best picture today because he went down to Knottberry Farm, and they have a toilet paper cake.
Yes, which was
at their bakery, which is awesome.
It was pretty cool. Damien DeCruz mentioned PaceyCon. Okay, so I think we mentioned this at least on the Patreon podcast. We are planning to still do a virtual reader party. I think we're going to do 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you know when we're doing the Patreon one? Like what month?
I do not. I don't even know if we mentioned it publicly yet.
Well, I think we mentioned it on the Patreon podcast. If you are a Patreon follower, at some point we want to do like a big virtual hangout and let you guys come on and just like talk to you guys. Like, it might be crazy, it might be a horrible idea, but we want to try it. So we're going to do that for the Patreon followers. And then for everybody else, for public podcasts on Wednesday of what would have been preview night, we'll be doing a virtual party. And we've got some really fun ideas for that we're not going to reveal right now, but I think it'll be good. Yep. And then we'll do our really big podcast on what would have been Saturday of Comic-Con, and we'll have all kinds of fun folks on that, which we will also announce later. So
there you go. So that is upcoming. So Damien also had a question. You still going to do the Patreon additional blogs, which yes, we are, as we just mentioned, and Star Wars Talk with James, which that's on me. I haven't done any more Star Wars Talk with James, actual Star Wars Talk with James podcast, but let's do a little Star Wars Talk with James right now.
Let's do it.
So
I say we like I'm involved in this in any way.
Yeah. Clone Wars ended 2 days ago. Again, because they, did the final season. It was epic. It was the last 4 episodes basically was a movie that they cut into 4 parts. It was pretty incredible, and it was the end of the show, and it definitely had that stamp of an ending, and it was amazing. And if you in any way like Star Wars or enjoyed the Clone Wars at all, it's definitely worth watching. One of my favorite directors was just announced that he is going to be doing one of the episodes of The Mandalorian, Robert Rodriguez. I am really stoked to hear that. And Peyton Reed was also announced, and I've enjoyed his Ant-Man movies and also Legally Blonde. I'm pretty sure that's the same director. So there you go. He will also be doing an episode of The Mandalorian. That's going to be great. So Star Wars keeps on going. Taika is going to do a Star Wars movie. That's kind of insane. And I know you said, you mentioned it to me earlier.
Do you want me to say my thing?
Like, it's Star Wars. Listen, Star Wars fans in some areas, especially of the internet, don't exactly have a good reputation for being nice or logical or other nice things. So it's kind of like, do you really want someone who's like Taika, who is like this really like artistic, like, bless you, type, who, do you think he can put up with what the internet's going to bring on him? Oh,
I think he can put up with it. No, so what I said before this started was I was like, and I don't go here. Let's make this very clear. I don't go here at all. I love Taika. I'm a little concerned that he's making a Star Wars movie. I know everybody's super excited, but I'm like, he could make the greatest movie of all time, and I feel like 50% of the internet is still going to be like, this is horrible. He's a horrible person for making it, and I hate him. Like, it does not matter how it turns out. Like, 50% will hate him, 50% will love him. And I'm just like, we just like leave him alone. Like, just, I feel like I want only people I hate to make Star Wars movies is what I really want. Like, if I already hate them, great. Give them all the Star Wars movies. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Can you tell that Carrie's not exactly a Star Wars fan? but we love her anyway.
I don't hate it. It's just not my thing.
It's just a thing.
It's just not my thing.
It's only been like the driving force of pop culture for 40 years or so.
And you know what? You can have it.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for what's coming up with Star Wars. And I can't wait for Mandalorian Season 2 now, especially with the rumors that Ahsoka Tano may be coming in as a live-action character, which we're probably going to talk about this on our Star Wars Talk with James podcast when we get back to doing them, which is she's probably slowly rising to the top of my favorite Star Wars character. And right now she's like in the top 3. So she keeps going higher and higher with everything new that they come out that has her in it. So the only bad thing about the live action is that it probably isn't going to be Ashley playing her because they need someone else to play her in live action. So whatever, but we'll go from there. I think that's enough Star Wars talk with James. We got to save something for the eventual podcast we do.
That's funny. It was good though. It was good. It was nice to do that. And honestly, it was nice to do this podcast. I know a lot of you have been asking us since they made the announcement, like, when are you guys going to do your podcast? And I know that this is a weird year, but like, we want to make this feel as normal as we can, given the situation. So it's nice just to hang out with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, look, we look exactly like we do every year. This is what we look like every year doing this podcast. It's what we sound like. We're just talking about stuff that's a little bit different. And we're not going to all meet up in 2 months when Comic-Con comes around.
We can start theorizing about 440 days from now if you guys really want. But let me tell you, they're not going to be very close predictions.
When that number hits 364, then we can start theorizing about it, because that's what we would do anyway. This year, we're going to concentrate on SDCC online.
And again,
pay attention to the website, sdccblog.com. Check it out. Check out all the artists. Check out the SDCC online posts. We're going to keep on doing everything that we do all throughout the next 2.5 months. The SDConCast, the next episode, will be back next month on June 3rd. And then we'll have hopefully a special guest. We'll do whatever news and all of that stuff that we've gotten in the last month. And we'll go from there.
And again, like, if you guys have ideas, like, I absolutely want to hear from you guys. Like, do you guys, before, like, a month before WonderCon, I started daily posting, like, an artist spotlight. Like, do you want me to do that for Comic-Con? Would you rather have, like, from now until then, a weekly, like, interview with them on our site? Like, what do you guys want? Like, please feel free to tell us. And yeah, we want to hear from you guys. We want to do stuff that you find engaging, that you find fun. And again, we really just want to stress, like, it's so important right now that if you have the funds, if you have the ability, please go and support small artists and vendors. Let me reiterate the word small to help them get through this time. Like, this is our community. Like, if you do not support these people now, like, they may not make it to 2021 where you can go and support them at their booth. So if you've got the funds, like, please go and help out these people.
And then 28th on your list, we do have a Patreon. So if you do have a couple of bucks spare change at the end of the month and you're like, who can I give this to? Well, we have a Patreon. Check out the blog. You can sign up for it right on the website. We really appreciate everyone who supports us every month. We know that it's a choice you make to support us, and we really appreciate it. And
we do. We keep $0 of it, and it goes to help pay for our hosting costs. So thank you very much.
Yes. Other than that, I think that's about it. Thank you all for joining us as we return to the SDConCast. And Carrie, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Carrie Dixon. James, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I am everywhere online at Dan Regal, and you can check out geekshotphoto.com for links for both Beth and I for photography and other social media stuff. And also thank you to Beth, our producer. She will be editing the show. When we have them someday, we will have slides. She does all of that. And basically, she gets this podcast into your ears.
Yes, thank you so much, Beth. We are on iTunes. If you'd like to subscribe, the links are up in the blog, or you can search for SDConCast. If you like what you've heard so far, please review us. We're also on Stitcher Radio. The link is in the show notes.
If you want to get a hold of us, send us an email at sdcomiccon.blog@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sdconblog, or tweet us at sd_comic_con. Thank you all for being here, for listening, and for going forward from here into SDCC Online. And everybody, go Schwartz!